Hi, I'm Andy Schmuckler. I've been thinking about the between the way I've been trying to fight this fascist force for the last 20 years and the way Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are doing it, because they're being very successful, taking a very different approach. A month ago, we knew that we were facing a really serious threat in Donald Trump. Lots of ways you can put it, but basically we were quite likely to lose American democracy because of all the things that we know, not only that he's done, the crimes he's committed, but what he's been given a license to do now and what he's announced his intentions to do. It's very, very ugly. And I must say that a month ago, I was just feeling such a sense of dread at the end of this presidential election. We would have the fascists having taken over pretty much completely, because the futures markets, the polls, all indicated that was the likely outcome. And it was scary to contemplate. What am I going to do? How am I going to live a life in a country, the land of the free, becoming the land of the unfree? Well, I was afraid of that, and I sensed and saw expressed that that sense of dread was pretty much permeating a big section of American body politic, of which I consider myself part. There's a lot of fear, appropriate when you can think of what might happen. But then here comes Kamala Harris as the new standard bearer. And I think the first ad that she puts out is called Fearless. I think that the fact that they came out with that ad called Fearless, I think that signals that either she and her group were aware that the issue of how are we going to deal with fear is central. And their decision was they were going to be fearless. So I've been putting out Jeremiah ads, since I saw what was taking over the Republican Party. Well, some through the 1990s, but certainly by 2004. I've been, sort of in the tradition of those who warn, repent, the end is near, kind of thing. I started my mission in the world on this subject in 2005, launching my own website with a piece that basically got me started pretty well, called "What America Needs Now is a Prophetic Social Movement," where the prophet is one that essentially denounces evil and takes it very seriously, and warns against what is coming if people don't choose the good instead of the evil. From Jeremiah to John the Baptist. But here we've got Kamala Harris, it would be even before she picked Walz, who is of this kind too, was coming out with, I'm fearless. And she's not talking about Trump as, she's not warning the American people. I mean, a little bit she is. But one reads about how she's sort of backed off from where Biden seemed to be heading, which is more my direction of, Trump represents an existential threat to America's basic values, the democracy, survival, the rule of law. I gather that they're going to soft pedal that way of putting it. I've been thinking about, well, what does that signify? They've gone in this direction and they're being rather successful. And what I've come up with, well, first of all, there's the American people, and this is a campaign to influence people in the American electorate. And for people, well, a lot of people, the idea that the American democracy is threatened, and you can point to the ways in which it is, it registers rather well. But I think that the American electorate doesn't consist of a majority of people who can both see the threat and respond to it appropriately. I'm not sure exactly what's going on with the rest of the people, but my suspicion is that these are more abstract things. You know, the idea of the rule of law is very meaningful to somebody, like Andrew Weissman and Jamie Raskin. That's very meaningful, but how many people have are really geared to, with conceptually having the space to recognize that if somebody like Donald Trump considers himself above the law, that's not going to be okay. I think there's probably a deficit of understanding in the country that has to be taken into account when you decide how much are you going to pitch this thing in terms of a threat. So for that reason, it may be better, more effective to talk about these people as weird, which is, real like basic human. What is beyond the pale? What do we accept as a person that we're happy to have in our community and our dinner table? And who wants to have weird people around? And that's a more fundamental thing than we prefer democracy to fascism. So there's that element. But I think that there's another piece of this, and that's got to do with Donald Trump and what Donald Trump's modus operandi is. Donald Trump is out to intimidate. That is his whole trip. He loomed over Hillary Clinton in that 2016 debate, the one that she wishes if she could have it back, she would have said, "Back off, creep." But she didn't. He was an intimidating presence. And he's a bully. He successfully, to get the nomination, he successfully bullied Little Marco and Lion Ted and Low Energy Jeb. He's an intimidator. Now we're sitting there in dread a month ago because he constitutes a real threat, and we're afraid of him. We're afraid of what would happen if he got the power. And the thing is, the more we deal in terms of fear, the more we hand him power, because that is the currency that feeds him. The extent to which he can cause fear in his enemies and dominate them, he is fortified. So showing fear, as in he represents a threat to all that we hold sacred, on the one hand, it's a way of attacking him, but on the other hand, it's a way of giving him the power because we show that he made us frightened. Now, I expect that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz know perfectly well what kind of a threat he represents. But we've seen that in movies, too, that two people who are circling each other for some kind of a gunfight in the street or a brawl in the bar or whatever it's going to be, they act like they got no concern that the other guy might shoot them dead or knock them out or something like that. Their sarcasm and taunting as a way of not giving power to the threat. And I think that when you're dealing with a bully, I'm not saying that the Jeremiah approach is inappropriate in general, but when you're dealing with somebody like Donald Trump, who's continually into utilizing fear to feed off of and bolster his own power, not the right strategy for dealing with a bully. With a bully, it's better to be mocking and scornful and diminishing the opponent rather than magnifying him. And I think that part of the success they're having is that they are shrinking Trump because they're not feeding him any acknowledgement that they've got the least bit concerned, because they're out there to defeat him, and they think of him as weird and I know his type. and say it to my face, chicken. That's, I think, the best way to deal with a bully. And that's what we're up against right now. And I'm happy to learn that this is a good way to do it. You know, the joyfulness is to feed the pro-democracy forces something which feels good and makes them feel stronger. Joyfulness. Yea, though we walk through the valley of the shadow of death. We're not going to talk about the valley of the shadow of death. We are going to be joyful. And as for this guy out here that we need to defeat, we're not going to acknowledge that he gives us something we might legitimately be afraid of, because we're going to be fearless. And we are going to cut him down to size. And we are going to starve him of the gratification he gets from making us scared, like the great Oz in that at the end of The Wizard of Oz, who is out to frighten, well, I guess the Cowardly Lion, and she bops, doesn't she? Oh, she bops the lion on the nose when she meets the Cowardly Lion. That's a good approach, and I intend to continue to study how they do this and learn what that means about both how do you reach the American electorate and get all the people you might to vote to reject Trump and to elect them president to take the country in a positive direction. Impressed. I really don't see any sign that this Democratic duo, with Walz bringing this great Midwestern act, so good-natured and so devastating at the same time, I think that we're on our way to something really, really good and fearless and mocking. Not the prophetic warning against the coming of evil seem to be the way to win this fight. Thank you. If you're interested, please like, follow, subscribe, and if you want to see my integrated picture of what are the forces at work in the human world that are shaping the challenges that we face, please go to my website, abetterhumanstory.org. I see us as battling not only for the survival of American democracy, but that is part of the larger battle to see whether human civilization can get its act together and survive for the long haul, rather than destroy ourselves as we evidently might. So go please to abetterhumanstory.org if you're interested in seeing how all that gets laid out in a systematic and elaborate, and I think it holds water. So that's what I've got to offer. Thank you for your attention.